So what's going on, my beautiful viewers? I am back again today for another installment in Overlord, the Sacred Kingdom cut content. Yes, I know it's been a while since we've done one of these, but I wanted to post other videos in the meantime. I would also like to say, in terms of news of the movie itself, as of the time of this recording, the movie has been released on DVD in Japan. I still don't know when we're going to get a release in the West or any other non-Japanese countries. I don't know when that will be, but it being released on DVD in Japan is hopefully a good sign that soon it'll be released to the rest of the world as well. So guys, today we're going to be continuing on with our analysis of the Volume 13 content of this part of the movie. Last time we left off right at the end of Chapter 4, going into Chapter 5, and that's where we're going to be picking up today. So the first scene of Chapter 5 is actually a scene between Caspar, Gustav, and Remedios and a few other paladins, higher-ranking paladin people, and they're discussing the aftermath of the battle and also their future plans moving forward with how to conduct themselves. I have to be honest, guys, it's been so long since I've seen the movie now, I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what they did with it, but my memory of the scene in the movie at this point was that it was very, very short. So basically, during the course of this conversation, Caspar keeps talking about the Sorcerer King, and just like, oh, if it wasn't for the Sorcerer King, we would have lost the battle, and he's very grateful to Ainz, but Remedios is very upset by this. Does that mean like all of our sacrifices were meaningless? He just waited for the right moment to come in and save everyone. Like, he let all these other people die when he could have just won anyway, and Caspar is like trying to calm her down and is just like, yes, you're right, the sacrifices of our troops do mean something, but the Sorcerer King was the thing that turned the tide. Like, without him, we would have lost. And Remedios is struggling to accept this fact. And an interesting thing that happens in this scene is that Remedios throws out the theory that Jaldabaoth and Ainz are working together. Maybe it was like Ainz's plan to have Jaldabaoth invade the country in order for him to save it. But this has happened a few times already in Volume 12 and 13, is that Remedios has kind of correctly guessed what's actually going on here, like what the big picture things are actually happening. Like, Jaldabaoth isn't what he seems, and like Ainz isn't what he seems, and like there's other things at work here. She's already correctly guessed like a lot of Ainz's like actual intentions, but because of how he presents himself, no one believes her. No one believes that like he is actually like the mastermind behind this whole thing, even though he really isn't. It's really more Demiurge. But in the big scale of things, like, yeah, he is the cause of all of this stuff. So it's just funny that no matter what Remedios does and no matter how correct she is, like no one ever believes her. And the reason for that is she doesn't have any like conclusive evidence. It's just based on her gut feelings. She always just uses like, oh, this is just what I think. But because she has no evidence, no one believes her, even though she actually is right, which I just find funny. So the next scene of the light novel isn't something that's completely removed from the movie, but it was like jumbled up and out of order. So the next scene in the light novel is Ainz teleports back to Nazarick and has a meeting with Albedo and Demiurge. We see this very, very briefly in the movie and at a later time. In the movie, this scene is kind of presented as a flashback when Ainz is walking to go meet Jaldabaoth for their fight. A bit later on in the story when this scene actually occurs in the movie, and it's a very brief, I wouldn't even say it was a full minute, showing just a brief conversation between Albedo, Demiurge, and Ainz, and them talking about like the duel that they're going to arrange. You don't get full details from this conversation in the movie. Whereas in the book, this is like a 10-page scene here where everything is explained, like what exactly is going to be happening in the next part of the story. So that's something that the movie did very, very well, is completely changing the perspective of the events. Like, you know, in the light novel, before Jaldabaoth shows up and has this duel with Ainz, like, we already know what's going to happen. Everything is told to us as the reader. Whereas in the movie, because it's mostly from Neia's point of view, other than a few small scenes here showing us Ainz's internal dialogue, the movie leaves you much more in the dark as to what exactly is happening in these events. So the scene starts off with Ainz, Albedo, and Demiurge all meeting up, and most of the dynamics are kind of what you would come to expect from Overlord. It's from Ainz's point of view, and a big part of his internal dialogue is dedicated to just talking about how much he hates being treated like royalty and how weird it is for him still at this point. We're 13 volumes in at this point, and it's still like something he's not gotten used to. And also, he's getting weirded out by like things that the NPCs are saying. Like there's this one scene where where Ainz is kind of trying to determine like the bounds of their loyalty or whatever. And Demiurge Jaldabaoth says this, I can't remember who says it, and they're just like, well, Lord Ainz, your word is law. Like if you say black is white, then it's no longer black, it's white, and that's just something we have to deal with. And Ainz is just like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, why are you acting this way? There's so many scenes like this throughout the story of Overlord, but they never really lose their comedic value to me. It's just how different Ainz is presenting himself to be, and how different he looks from a third person view versus when we actually hear his thoughts. The kind of juxtaposition of those two perspectives is very funny to me, especially when you're reading it in the book. So really the rest of the conversation is just them detailing what exactly this duel and why are they setting up a fight between Ainz and Jaldabaoth. And the whole point that Ainz is trying to make by doing this whole duel is to run an exercise on if Ainz died. What would happen in the case of Ainz dying? How would you handle this? And like Albedo says like, oh, I would immediately hunt down the person that did it and prepare for your resurrection. And Demiurge is like, oh, I would prepare for some defenses and I would try to make sure like our internals are good. They have like these different hypotheticals, but Ainz is like, listen, like you guys are coming up with different solutions. We need to have like a firm plan on if something happens to me. And another point that's brought up later on, but I'll bring it up right now, is that Ainz wants combat training. He wants to actually fight in a fight with stakes, because he hasn't had a serious fight or a fight with any sort of stakes whatsoever since his fight with Shoutir in Volume 3. And he realizes the world he's in is not a game anymore, okay? It's real life and battle experience matters a lot. And so Ainz basically thinks about like, if I fight against a level 100 guy, whoever has the more experience could be the determining factor, so I need to get more fighting experience under my belt. He arranges it in such a way that they are actually trying to kill him, like he wants a serious fight. None of these details are revealed in the movie. This is a huge info dump, basically spoiling the plot of what is going to be happening in the future events of the book. And that's just going to show you how different the perspectives we get in the book are versus the movie. So basically the fight drill has been set, and we then cut away to another scene with Neia. And this is basically right after her meeting with Ainz. So the timeline's a little screwy here. But in this scene, we get some funny things about the rune technology, of course. Neia reports to Ainz during the battle, like, oh yes, sorry, tons of people saw my bow, but they're all dead now. So no one's alive that saw the bow. And Neia sees that Ainz is disappointed by this news, but she interprets his disappointment at sadness that citizens of this kingdom are dead. Whereas in truth, he's just disappointed that no one's alive that saw the bow. And this is just once again Neia kind of just misconstruing the events that are happening around her, or reshaping the events that are happening around her in a very positive light for Ainz. Also during this scene, she ends up talking to several other soldiers, and they're all talking about like, oh, Lady Baraha, like, oh, it's the assistant to the Sorcerer King. And this is showing us that Ainz is really starting to get a good following within the military of the Robo Holy Kingdom, people that support him and people that don't fear him anymore, even though he's an undead. And Remedios actually shows up, and there's even like a small confrontation between her and Neia where like Remedios starts kind of shit talking Ainz a little bit, and Neia is now, she's no longer afraid or intimidated by Remedios. She has no problem now talking out of turn, despite the fact that Remedios still outranks her. Neia has no problems with talking back to her now. Like whenever she insults the Sorcerer King, Neia will defend him. So this is showing her change in personality. She's becoming a lot more bold. And Remedios leaves, and then Neia talks to these people, and she basically recruits them into like kind of like her own little unit. Like she's like, oh, like you guys want to work with me because like, oh yeah, like your bow skills are great. And basically I see this as like her just kind of making her own little semi-following under the umbrella of Ainz. Like she's recruiting like-minded people that think like her towards the Sorcerer King, like into her own little clique here. It's the beginnings of some big changes in the political dynamics of the Robo Holy Kingdoms, but this is like the first kind of real thing that gets the ball rolling in that direction, which I thought was interesting. So then we have a little bit of a time skip here. This does not happen in the movie, or if it does, it's not really stated what exactly happened, but there's a time skip in the book, and it's about 3 weeks. And this has happened in earlier scenes in the movie where they completely jumble up or do not really tell you about the passage of time, or there really isn't much of a passage of time. Whereas in the light novel, like from the beginning of volume 12, where we are right now in volume 13, it's been like over a month. Like this is a long time. Like in the movie, it seemed like everything happened in the span of a few days. Whereas actually the timeline in the light novel, it's like a month and a half, almost 2 months, I would say, I think at this point. So during this time, Neia has been training with her kind of like new recruits or whatever, and she's noticed that her bow skills have improved significantly. And she's also noticed that she can now channel holy energy into her shots. She used to not be able to do that. She has grown significantly stronger since the big battle in the last chapter. And also Ainz's following amongst the soldiers and people has increased as well, because the paladins, as well as Ainz and Neia, have been liberating prison camps. Basically anyone who's been liberated by Ainz personally has like completely changed their mindset and is now like for him. This is also the point where Neia starts wearing the visor that we see in a lot of images of her. Up to this point, she actually hasn't been wearing it. Ainz gave it to her sometime during this time skip. And this visor lets her use a skill called Snake Shot. She can use it once every 3 minutes. And what this skill does is it makes her arrows, from the way they describe it, it makes them leap up and change direction. So like maybe like you shoot it and then it jumps up like that. I think that's like how it works. We also get some more information on some infrastructure problems that are happening within the city. The city was initially built for a population of like 20 to 30,000 people, but with all the refugees from the war, along with the people that they're liberating from the prison camps, their population of the city is like over 150,000. Like there's becoming a lot of infrastructure problems with like housing and sanitation. So they're realizing that they can't stay in this city forever, and they need to start making some plans to move out. And it's also mentioned by Neia that Ainz has actually been helping out with these problems by using summons. Like he's been summoning the soul eaters to like pull like cargo around, and like he's using undead to help build things. And this is another reason why the population is starting to think more highly of him and, you know, starting to come over to his side. So Ainz meets up with Neia at their like training range, and they're having like this little conversation when suddenly a big column of flame appears in the middle of the city. Ainz flies him and Neia directly to where the Jaldabaoth showed up. It's also mentioned that that wall of flame that we saw in season 2 in Riestes, that has kind of sprung up around the city as well. So Ainz, Neia, and Remedios all gather in this room, and that's when Jaldabaoth rips the chunk of the wall out and is there for the confrontation. So then we have one of the most gruesome scenes in all of Overlord, where of course Jaldabaoth hits Remedios with the body of Kalka that he'd been holding on. Club scene that we saw in the very beginning of the movie. So in the month and a half since the start of this book, he has been holding on to Kalka's body this whole time and has been using it as a club. So, and it's decomposed to the point where he hits Remedios with her body, and it just splatters everywhere. We see this in the movie too. They did the scene justice in the movie, and Remedios is freaking out, understandably, because, you know, this is one of her really good friends and everything. And Jaldabaoth is just like, oh, like, well, I just should be praised for using something so efficiently. I used it until it broke. Even in the movie, I was sitting there like, you know, I knew this was gonna happen. I had already read volumes 12 and 13 before I saw the movie. I still remember watching it in the movie, and I was just like, whoa, like this is intense. So I don't remember this happening in the movie, but what actually then happens is Remedios snaps herself out of it, and she uses her holy attack that I've mentioned in the previous video that she can only use once a day. She uses it on Jaldabaoth, but it does nothing, and she's just like, why, you're so evil, like you're obviously so karmically negative. And he's just like, you're just too weak, you can't do anything. Jaldabaoth challenges Ainz, and then he flies off, and Ainz is like, I'll go meet him, and Neia wants to go with him, but he refuses because that would kind of defeat the point. And actually at this point, it's kind of obvious to the reader that Ainz is just making up excuses for like why Neia can't come with, because he wants to be alone, because he wants to be able to like interact with the NPCs. So then we now cut to a scene with Ainz basically approaching the duel site, which we see in the movie. We see this very briefly. In the movie, this is where they then show us the meeting between Albedo, Demiurge, and Ainz. There's a full scene with Wrath and also the Pallades maids, which are also there. Something that needs to be explained is that the Pallades maids that are there are not actually the real Pallades maids. They are doppelgangers that have taken the form of the Pallades maids, and Lupus Regina and Yuri are the only ones that are there, and then also Demon Lord Wrath, who is the person pretending to be Jaldabaoth. And then the next like 2 pages are basically info dumps on everyone that's going to be in the fight. We get a lot of information on Wrath. This is where we learn that he's level 84 and he's a pure warrior type. We also get like his spells and like some of his skills, and Ainz goes on to explain like, okay, so then we have also the Lupus Regina and Yuri to help out, and he's like thinking generally these people would not really be threats. If I was just like doing this like as best as I could, or like basically fighting them as best as I could, these people wouldn't really be all that threatening to me, even as a group. So actually something Ainz does to make the fight even more difficult for himself, he doesn't want to kill the Pallades maids because of there might be like resources, like that would be resource heavy to do that. Basically weaken them to the point where I'll declare that they're out. And they basically just outline all the rules for their duel and everything. It's this huge scene that was completely removed from the anime. They didn't have any of this in the movie. And this is also a moment where Ainz once again thanks his undead nature, because he said like, if I wasn't undead, I probably wouldn't have arranged for this because I'd be too afraid of dying. He's glad that his fear of death is stifled by his undead nature. And that's the whole point, is they have been told to come at him with intent to kill. And we do know that if Ainz loses, part of the deal was to Albedo that he has to stay within Nazarick for a year, and Albedo has to like always be in the room with him or something. It's obviously an arrangement by Albedo to try and get closer to Ainz or something like that. So in the movie, this fight is super short. We get barely anything from Ainz's perspective, and then it just cuts to Neia like viewing it, and then the scene's over. It is a super quick fight scene. It may be a minute. In the book, however, this fight between them is a lot longer. Like I think there's like at least 5 or 6 pages of just Ainz's point of view before it cuts away to Neia's. So the fight starts off and like it's just Yuri and Wrath are coming to attack him, and he's kind of like flying around and like scoping things out. He tries to cast a spell that he notices a projectile shot him and canceled his spell. That's when he realized that it's not just Yuri and Lupus Regina that are here. All the other Pallades are here. So Solution, Entoma, Shizu is here. The only one that's missing is Narbril. But all of them are here, and he's just like, you guys tricked me. Like I thought it was just you guys. And like he actually gets like, what the hell? Like, did you guys do this as like a trick? Like, oh right, they're coming out with the kills. So of course they would like kind of trick me or something like that. Or maybe they just thought I knew they were there. It would be too long to explain every little thing that happens with this fight. Like Ainz uses this explosion spell to like push back, like it has a knockback effect, so everyone gets blown away. And because Ainz's magic defense is so high, he just uses it really close range because he's like, I'll just tank it. There's also a moment where he tries to cast a spell again and it gets canceled again by Shizu, and that's when he realizes that all of the Pallades must have been buffed by Oriel Omega. Aurelia? Or I don't even know how to say it. I say Oriel, but I'm not even sure if that's how you say it. She's on the 8th floor, and they're like, oh, there's no way she would come out here, so they must have all been buffed by her before they came here, and that's like making them even stronger than they normally would, because he was noticing like some of these skills are more powerful. And then it just cuts off and we jump over to Neia, but there's a extensive fight scene from Ainz's point of view in the book that is not in the movie at all. So then we cut to Neia's point of view, and most of it is just her like just admiring the fight and just realizing like how out of her depth like she is with beings like Jaldabaoth and Ainz. But an interesting point that she brings up in this scene is that she thinks about, I think it would be good if we became a vassal of the Sorcerer Kingdom. And she makes it her goal to like convert people. Like she actually thinks in her mind, like, I want to convert people to like think this way. And she like starts formulating a plan to like convert the kingdom citizens to like Ainz and things like that. It's actually crazy because she's like actually just verbatim saying that to herself. In the movie, we don't really get this type of stuff like from her. Like we do eventually see that she's like obsessed with Ainz and like she almost worships him and stuff. We do eventually see that stuff, but like we just don't get that inner dialogue that really like just verbatim tells us like this is what she's planning, and like this shows us like her level of dedication now. So then the fight breaks up and we have that scene where it sees like Ainz is like launched way out. They didn't really show it all that well in the movie. In the movie, it seemed like he landed like right outside the city wall. It didn't really seem like he landed all that far away. In the book, it's described as he is launched like way across the sky, and like he is way outside. He could have landed even in the Abelion Hills. They don't even know where he lands because it's so far away. In the movie, it didn't look like he was that far, so I just thought that was funny. But then Jaldabaoth shows back up, and in the movie, he was beat up after this fight, but in the book, his injuries are described much more severely. Half his face is gone, like a chunk of his arm and shoulders are like ripped out, and he has like red blood that's like boiling on all over his skin. The gruesomeness of his injuries they sounded more severe than I remember them being in the movie. But I do remember in the movie that he was very beat up after this fight. So then of course we have him declaring that the Sorcerer King is dead, which was like kind of like the tagline for the promotion of the movie. But of course, like to the book reader, we know that this is a ruse. Like there's no way that Ainz is actually dead. Even though they were actually coming at him with intent to kill, there's no way that this would be allowed. But in the movie, you know, we don't have all that extra information. There's very little tidbits. Like we had this small scene with Ainz, Albedo, and Demiurge, but like really people that hadn't read the light novel wouldn't know exactly what exactly is happening, as opposed to the light novel where we know everything that's happening. So then Jaldabaoth departs, or is about to depart, and then of course we have the runes scene where he keeps trying to talk about the bow and like, oh, the bow, that thing could hurt me. He keeps trying to speak, and Neia is just screaming at him to shut up because she's so upset that Ainz is dead by his declaration. Neia's like, I can't believe a word you say, like nothing you say is true, so no one listen to him, no one listen to this demon. She keeps shouting about it, and Rav keeps trying to talk about the runes. Neia just keeps cutting him off, and so he can't say anything, which is of course just more of a running gag of the failure of trying to promote rune weapons in the Robo Holy Kingdom. So Jaldabaoth teleports away, and Neia immediately wants to just get people and go look for Ainz. Like she is like going to run out of the room and go look for Ainz immediately, and Remedios stops her, and they have a huge argument. Like Neia is like, this really goes to show you how much Neia has grown and how much she comes to have cared about Ainz. Like when it comes to Ainz, she is not backing down to anyone. She's just like, I don't care what you think, Remedios. Like, I'm going to go look for the king. Like, I'm not going to stop here. I have to go find him. But then Caspon shows up, and he kind of settles down the whole situation for a little while. So then some time passes. I'm not entirely sure how long it is, and they have a meeting discussing what they should do. In the movie, this also happens, but it's a much shorter scene, and I think there's less people there. In the book, there's also nobles there as well, and they give their take on what should be their next course of action. A lot of political things are brought up in this conversation that are left out of the movie. The nobles bring up the fact that the demi-human army has now moved to the southern part of the Robo Holy Kingdom, who's kind of a separate entity, and they're now fighting the southern army. And some nobles are pitching the idea of, oh, we should go and pincer the demi-human army. If we attack them from the north while they're fighting the south, we can wipe them out. Caspon brings up things like power dynamics within the Robo Holy Kingdom, and how the north has been basically completely drained by all the attacks that have been happening lately, and that even if they do wipe out the demi-human army, as of right now, the southern army is much stronger, so they would be able to enforce their will on the north, and like the north would be at a massive disadvantage compared to the south because they're drained and the south isn't. And so basically what Caspon proposes is that they should retake Kalishna, which we saw in volume 12. That was when the first big battle between Remedios and the Holy Queen was there too, because it's a fortress city. Also, it's larger, and he wants to recapture their cities because they need more bases of power, and that they should let the Southern Army fight the demi-humans for a time because they need to preserve the balance of power. Once again, we're just getting a lot bigger political scope of what's happening in the Robo Holy Kingdom. But then Neia interjects and says she wants to look for Ainz, and she also wants to send a messenger to the Sorcerer Kingdom to tell them what happened to Ainz, and she wants to be the one to do it, but this idea is thrown out by Caspon because he's just like, oh, Neia, you're not a high enough rank, like that would be improper for you to go. But she's like determined to at least go look for Ainz. But her plan is put on hold because Caspon is called out. He just says like, something has come up, I have to go, and that's where the chapter ends. That's left ambiguous for the time being. So in the movie, it immediately skips to to Neia going to meet Shizu after this. In the book, we get the intermission chapter, and the intermission chapter has nothing to do with any of this stuff that is going on. They're completely unrelated events. So I understand why they removed it from the movie. They basically always remove intermission chapters from the Overlord anime. I think there was like 1 or 2 that they included in there. So the intermission chapters, there's 2 scenes in the intermission chapters. So it cuts to the Baharuth Empire where Jerknev is managing some things. He's like doing some administrative tasks. Basically, it's showing you that Jerknev actually kind of likes being a vassal state. All the people that would have complained to him before, he can now direct them to, oh, just complain to Ainz then if you want to complain. No one wants to complain to Ainz because they're also afraid of him. His stomach ulcers have ceased as well, and he's stopped losing his hair. He says he has like half the work he used to have back when he was an autonomous ruler. And another really kind of cute point is Ryuro shows up. As it turns out, they actually both met each other at some time previously in the Sorcerer Kingdom. They were both waiting to meet Ainz, and they just kind of struck up a conversation, and they are now really great friends. When they meet each other, they like are hugging each other. He's just like, oh, I'm so good to see you, Ryuro. It's kind of a sweet scene because Jerknev is like, oh, this is my first real friend. Like he's never had friends before because of his royal upbringing. Ryuro is a person that's gone through the same thing he has. They are both rulers that have been subjugated by Ainz, and so basically they've been brought together in Jerknev's eyes by their collective suffering under Ainz. I'm not entirely sure how long it's supposed to have been when this scene happens, but like they already get news of Ainz dying in the Robo Holy Kingdom, so I'm assuming it had to have been at least like a week or 2. So once again, the passage of time, like how they show it in the movie versus like what it is in the book, completely distorted. So the second scene that happens in the intermission is a very brief scene between an 8 Fingers executive and Hilma, and Hilma is losing her shit over Philip, how irritating he is to deal with, and like how it's like he's just so freaking stupid. I don't think we can work with him. Like I know Albedo told me to get an idiot, but we might have done it too much because like he's so stupid it might actually screw up the plan. And that's what they call foreshadowing, people, because that's exactly what happens in season 4. The point of view character is not named, but it's just some guy that works with Hilma, and it, like Hilma is like rolling around on the floor and is like yanking her hair because she's just so annoyed. But and that's basically all the scene is just Hilma complaining about Philip. But I just thought these scenes were funny because they show you a little bit more. Number one, what's going on with like so many events took place in the Baharuth Empire in the previous volumes that it is showing you kind of the fallout, or not really the fallout, but the resolution of what's happened since the Baharuth Empire has submitted to the Sorcerer Kingdom, as well as foreshadowing the events of the next volume. And so guys, with that, we are going to leave off. That covers all of chapter 5 and the intermission chapters of volume 13. That's over 100 pages. So we're about halfway through this. So I would say we have about 2 more videos worth. I am very, very excited to get into the next arc because that's where we get introduced to one of the most fun arcs of this story with the dynamic between Neia and Shizu. It was one of my favorite like whole bits in the movie, and so I'm very excited to cover that part of the story as well. So yeah guys, this cut content breakdown, there were very significant omissions, such as the battle scene being completely massacred in the movie. The battle scene was basically nothing in the movie, whereas it's like a very extensive scene in the light novel, like probably like 15-20 pages. And then we also get just way more information about like the events surrounding the Robo Holy Kingdom. We get more political stuff, all that juicy world building stuff, just way more of that. So guys, what did you think of this episode of the Sacred Kingdom cut content? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. You know I love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see another one like it, please hit that like button to let me know. And if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out more than you know, and it'll let you know when I post in the future. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching to the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.